And going live on the face melt. One moment as I hook it all up.
I'm melting. I'm melting.
I think Krowitz has the best hat. Although he does have one of these.
I do. I'm jealous. I want to go dig it out now.
All righty, everybody. We're live. Thank you very much for joining our holiday. This is our V.A.C. Holiday Roundtable number 2. Of course, we had one last year, and needless to say, it's been a whole other different year altogether. So needless to say, we wanted to honor as well as enjoy a little bit of the holidays. We spend a lot of the year talking a lot of interesting topics that we feel. And one of the things that we wanted to do is just have a little bit of silly fun for the holiday season. So one of the things that we're trying to do is just bring a smile to your face. So with that in mind, I want to welcome our council members, Al Byrne, Michael Krowitz, Michael Green, Kendra Billersoe, Aaron Pluff, George Armstrong, and Pearson Kennedy Crosby. So we're coast to coast all the way up to Alaska. So it's a pretty inclusive group that we have tonight. So we're basically going to start off with a interesting question, and then how has cannabis during the holiday changed the holiday for you? And we're going to start off with Council Member Michael Krowitz, and we'll go to Al Byrne, then Aaron.
Wow. All right. I'm really putting my thinking cap on here to answer that one. I really haven't gotten a lot of thought in this beforehand. How has the cannabis really changed the holidays for me? I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to think back to a holiday before cannabis. Right? Yeah, I think that cannabis is kind of something that when I look back at my memories and you overlay it over the memories beforehand, the only substantive difference is a little deeper connection. It seems like whenever you have, well, maybe this is a byproduct of prohibition, you tell me, but at least in the old days, when you had a wedding or any kind of event, any kind of holidays where the family gets together, Thanksgiving, Christmas, anything, you wind up with a little clique of people that for necessity, that's why I think it might be prohibition, for the necessity of prohibition, you go off and you disappear for a little while and you smoke a joint. But it's really a bonding thing. It's a ritual. It's something extra overlaid over everything else. Just a moment where you're really in that moment. You know what I mean? You're not in between two other things. It's a moment to just appreciate the ones around you and sort of lock that memory in. Does that make sense? Like everything else seems like it's moving around the holidays, but that moment in my mind is somehow a snapshot. It stands still.
Right on. Well, Al, how has cannabis changed the holidays for you, or has it?
Well, yeah. Well, has it? Yeah, I think that. No, I don't think it's made any impression on my holidays at all. My background, I joined the military when I was 17, and I left when I was 41. And I spent a lot of holidays, pick one or a dozen somewhere else, where it really didn't mean anything. It wasn't like you were, gathered together with your family. You're already with your family, wherever you were. So I don't think cannabis had any impact on me at all. I use cannabis every day, whether, I had a guy working for me a long time ago. We were feeding the sea bees, and he had a slogan. He said, every meal's a banquet and every day is a holiday. And so I've kind of gone with that on cannabis. Every day is a holiday.
Great mindset, needless to say, to have. So we'll go on over to Council Member Aaron Pluff.
Yeah, so for me, cannabis has helped me kind of be present, kind of like what Michael said. You know, I lived as a foster kid, and like I was always coming back, you know, and then as a Marine, I was always coming back to the family. So inevitably would find a person in the family or a friend that came with me and go out and like catch up on things. So it's very much about catching up with the closest people because, you know, it's the circle. When you go stand in the circle, you know, it's Christmas time and it might be freezing out or in the snow, passing it around, talking about good times and things like that. But ultimately, it's brought some of me and my closest friends together. And, you know, I just want to throw in there closing thought that, you know, when COVID started happening, like it was really hard to be social with your friends the same way it was with cannabis. And, you know, had to start rolling joints for individuals. And so everyone could have their own and things like that. But we adapted and we're still here. But I look forward to sharing a few joints this Christmas with some new people.
And that's also the holiday spirit of fun and is sharing. Sharing is caring. All right, now we'll go on over to Ohio. Kendra.
I don't really have an exciting answer. I mean, I was in the military most of my, especially my adult years. And so there's been a couple of them, but not really anything significant. I don't have a exciting answer for this one. So I wasn't allowed to do a lot of stuff, you know, so been a lot of different places. And as you guys were saying, you know, I've been with a lot of different families, and the military was my family, or it depends on where we were. So that's about it, really.
Well, thank you very much. Going up to the wonderful state of Alaska, Pearson.
Hey, how's it going? I love your hat, ATN.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, I guess what I can add is just that it is something that does bring people together, and more so than I think. You know, I think we're going to realize it as a society that it really helps with that unity as it becomes more normalized, and you don't have to go for air quotations a walk with your cousins to go you know, come back all stony-eyed on the before you eat, you know. And that's something I always look forward to when I was growing up, was you know, taking a walk around the block with my cousins or friends and family that came to the holiday festivities. But yeah, I think we're really it's really going to evolve as we move forward into normalization of legalization. So I look forward to, you know, allowing the circle to expand, per se.
Right on, Pearson. Well, we'll go on over to Michael Green.
Oops, I lost that. I'm dreaming of a green Christmas, just like the ones I used to know. I am the Jewish faith, and I was not smoking weed when I was a kid, and my family would attend celebrations with with friends and the family at Christmas Eve or maybe even a Christmas dinner, etc. By the time I got out of service, then cannabis and I were no longer strangers. And the several years after my 6 years coming back into school and adjusting to being back home, I, over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, got invited to a number of Christmas celebrations, and Christmas Eve parties or holiday parties. And in Tucson, Arizona, marijuana started to become the common denominator as opposed to alcohol. There was eggnog, there was alcohol available. But I would agree with what I've heard. It is bonding. We all know it's spiritual. Our previous conversation referred to the hash church you mentioned. I've attended some Cannabis recently, but it is social. It's also allows one to be in the present with frequency and, hopefully find calmness as well. But hey, you decorate a Christmas tree, nothing wrong with putting up some kind of little bud on there, maybe at the top of the tree. So I think Christmas and cannabis go together.
Well, thank you for the song. Needless to say, it put us all in a jolly little mood.
Well, I hope so. Started out a little rough there,
Right on. For myself, it kind of turned when I became a patient after Gulf War. I struggled just going back as a transfer back from National Guard into regular society, which was just as quick as I was in the desert in boots, I was back on the block, needless to say. So when I got recommended cannabis, it was definitely post the holidays, but I found myself later traveling for the holidays. And I realized that now I had to become a creative felon. Because I had my medicine now, and my medicine was keeping me alive and keeping me going. However, at the time I was dating somebody in college. It was West Virginia University. She lived in Vermont. And we went up there and I had to figure out how to hide my cannabis. And then I also had to figure out how to hide around her family with my cannabis. So, needless to say, I had lots of walks. And I was a cigarette smoker back then. So, I always just kind of doubled up on the cigarette. So, I would just go for a long walk, cigarette, smoke, then cigarette. And so that was a way that I could, mask the smell. But of course, nobody could believe that, my eyes weren't red for a reason. It's really cold out there. Oh, the snow and the wind, brr, so I had to, become creative in hiding what I was doing. I had to get creative in every time I went to use, I had to have some sort of excuse or some sort of situation. So fortunately, that was my kind of a first Christmas, I think, with cannabis per se. And then when as I got older and as was with the Cannabis Action Network and everybody, it was just, again, a wonderful time of year and to be around. Of course, everybody's sharing. So, it was to get buds, share buds, pipes, it was definitely a time of green giving and green celebrations. And then when I would, during my first marriage, I would find myself sometimes hanging out with the cousins and leading that walk of cousins before and after. It was very fortunate. She lived in southern Louisiana, and it was a solid 100 yards plus to the bayou and back. So, we just all go take a trip to the bayou, and then I'll come back and be really, really hungry for some reason, so I wasn't really aware how much cannabis impacted my holidays, and now it's just as normal a part of it. I use around my family. I try to promote normal cannabis use and not necessarily hide. So it's been great to come out of the shadows and into the light from you know, those dark days of prohibition where now it's accepted. And not only is it accepted, you know, I have friends who expect it now as gifts. So, you know, it's just, it is for what it is. But I've just been amazed at the resiliency of stoners and the creativity, such as when we may find ourselves in the holidays without, you know, a smoking implement, and you'll be amazed of gingerbread pipes and all kinds of things that come out of, you know, nowhere. And the intuitive instinctiveness and creativity always shines through. And somehow we're always able to get high. So with that in mind, so each one of us grew up in areas. Some of us had regions and foods that, you know, stick out to us. So things that are traditional, things that you expect for the holidays. So each one of us, even if it was in the military, you know, they even would make a special cake or a special something or cookie, you know, for you for the holidays to take with you for that time when you choose to, you know, have it and enjoy it. So with that in mind, Michael, what stands out for you for regions and foods for the holidays?
I had really interesting place that I was at in the military. And then after the military, I had one place that was really interesting when I think back in my sort of Rolodex of memories, life memories, in Guam, USA. That's where I got hurt in the Air Force on my motorcycle on my way home from dinner. But there's a lot of really cool times on Guam. It's a really neat place. People there, the Guamanian people, they spoke a kind of Spanish. The Guam, little island of Guam, I guess, was taken over many times over the centuries. And Japanese, I guess, were the previous controlling force before we took it over, I guess, during the World War II. But they have a lot of the remnants of that Spanish, ancient Spanish influence, I guess you'd call it. And the families there, they would go into like major finance to do a holiday gathering. They had these fiestas that they would have the whole community come over. It was like a 2-day thing. The men would get together the night before and start roasting a pig, and that was like this big, you know, ritual. We'd all be smoking weed and stuff. And you take a little nap, and then the ladies are already starting to put stuff on the table at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And you'd eat until you couldn't eat anymore. You go sit in the back and watch the lizards get chased by the snakes on the fruit trees while you smoke a joint and chew a little bit of that beetle nut. You put a little tiny bit of beetle nut between your lips and your teeth, and you chew on that, and then you go back and eat more. They had this kelaguen. It was like this sort of chicken and the meat of coconuts and like a vinegar kind of thing. It was just an incredible tasting preparation, and they had all kinds of different seafoods and fresh fruits, and just an amazing experience to be at one of those parties. And after leaving the military, over in Vienna, Austria, I just immediately think of them when I think of the holidays. I don't know that I've really spent the holidays in that many places, but I have over the years going to those United Nations meetings, gotten to spend some time in Vienna, and they go all out for Christmas. I mean, they go all out. They have these little like Christmas towns all over the city. And it's really, the couple of things that I'll say about it. One is it's incredibly family oriented. All day, all evening, there's just little children, and the most ancient of grandpas and grandmas, you know, all running around together, people drinking beer and having fun, you know, an adult thing, while, you know, 100 feet away, they're maybe doing bumper cars or something like that with the kids. I just thought it was fantastic. And really great eggnog and, you know, traditional snacks and foods built up like little village with little huts and houses in a little circle. And they'll do that all over the city. They dress up all the castles and the most lights that you've ever seen. They go all in. It's kind of beautiful.
Right on. That sounds great. Councilmember Pluff, you had a question, sir.
Well, I was going to share just a quick thing about food that's local to upstate New York. You know, I was born in Syracuse, New York, and there's a seasonal candy that's made in Rome, New York, at a place called Nora's Candy Shop. And essentially it becomes Christmas candy. And you guys will love this. And if you've heard of this, you know, let me know. But there's these candies called turkey joints, and they come out before Thanksgiving and stay out for the holidays. So I don't have any right now because I go through them pretty quickly when I do get them, but it's chocolate with I believe hazelnuts, and the guy that makes the candy used to make taffy, I believe, and he essentially has this process that's subject to trade secret process to make candy, and he weaves the sugar. It's hard candy, and they weave it and twist it kind of like taffy into these long sticks with chocolate and peanuts in the middle, and it's like a hard shell, and it's wonderful. But it's a very small business, and you know, they're only open like 5 hours a day, and it's like $20 a jar. And you know, essentially you would bust them out when you're getting loaded and share these turkey joints. You know, it kind of looks like a long piece of candy, but you know, look just like a big joint. And so if you guys know anyone from Rome, New York, up by Griffiths Air Force Base, they might be familiar with them. But I had to share that because they're like invented to share around the holidays.
Right on. Councilmember Byrne, how about you? What were foods that you associated around the holidays as you grew up?
Well, I was incredibly fortunate to have a set of grandparents that had their own bakery in New Bedford, Massachusetts for 40, 50 years. It was it was almost like a catered bakery. They had a retail shop, you know, it was like a come in off the street kind of thing. But all my grandfather had in there was a table and some chairs and free coffee. And if you came in there, he'd give you a free donut or a free sconce or whatever the hell they had there. He'd just give it away. Because what he really did was just make stuff for by order for the locals in New Bedford. He did. My grandfather did the breads and the pastries. My grandmother made the cakes and the sugar toppings and things like that. So, in other words, when we got to Christmas, it was quite the scene. You know, there was pies and cakes and stuff just piled up there. And as a 8, 10-year-old boy, I was into it all. So I just remember that about Christmas and one set of grandparents, and it was all sugar, and it was all great. It was a good time. It was a good time.
No, now. All right, Kendra. How about you? What are holiday foods in your
So my mother's side of the family is Italian Hungarian. My grandmother is 100% Italian. I used to say she was, you know, this tall by this wide. She's not as much anymore, but very much Italian. So we'd always have a very Italian Christmas, and we still do, which nobody's mentioned yet this year, but we always make either homemade spaghetti or homemade raviolis. And sometimes I'd get to come home in time to, because we don't make them right at Christmas. We make them before Christmas, and then we make a lot. We have a really big family, so it's a whole day process. And then you have to dry, you have to dry the noodles and everything. And you always make sauce and stuff like that. And I guess one year I was home one year, and I got to crimp the cheese raviolis. And I guess I didn't crimp them very well, because at Christmas time, I wasn't here, but I mean, believe me, I heard about it. I didn't crimp them well enough, and all the cheese raviolis just opened up when they boiled them up. So they didn't really have that many cheese raviolis this year, but, or that year, I'm sorry. But we do that. And then sometimes we'll do brajol, which is, my grandmother's taught me how to make it a couple times. It's basically beef flank that you pound out, and then you stuff it with just a stuffing of it's been so long, honestly, breading and all kinds of spices and seasoning and stuff like that. And then you sear the outside, and then you tenderize it within a sauce that you make from, obviously, homemade. And then my mother and I, we always, which honestly, tomorrow I'm going over there to make fruitcakes, which my mom got really good at making. And they're nothing like the traditional, you think fruitcake, they're disgusting. I don't know how she does it. I mean, I've helped her make them before, and I will tomorrow, but they're really good. So she got really good at making those, but she only started that sometime when I was gone. I don't know. I just heard about it. She got really good at it. And but we do make a huge variety of cookies. Me being from Ohio, we have to make Buckeyes, which are peanut butter and chocolate. And I got really good at making those even when I was really young. I did a lot of cooking even when I was really young. And so my mom wouldn't even make those. Like, that was Kendra's thing to make, was the Buckeyes. So, and they were simple, but we'll do Hungarian cookies and stuff like that. So we have a lot of tradition that we carry over still in our family, both from the Italian and the Hungarian side. So it's really nice to share with people. Oh, one thing, that getting into different types of food, I was stationed in Southern Georgia. So I got introduced, obviously, to collard greens and black eyed peas and stuff like that. So it's really awesome to go to different parts of, like what you're saying, the country and, the world, and learning about different types of foods and what people do differently in their families. So
Pearson, how about you? What foods do you associate with the holiday season?
I'm gonna have to go with the Wawa gobbler. I don't know, whoever's familiar with Wawa, it's a magical place, almost as magical as the Santa Claus house up here. But yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. Wawa is like a step up from 7-Eleven, and they do seasonal food. So they have everything from Thanksgiving to past the holidays. They have holiday foods, which was something that I every time I go back to Philly, I look forward to. Typically around this time too. So I it's got a special place in my heart. Besides that, since I've been up in Alaska, it's I guess the only thing that I could say with the potlatches here is that if you haven't had the beaver stew, don't try it. That's all I got to say about that.
All right, duly noted. No beaver stew, unless you accept the consequences.
Severe consequences, yes.
Yeah, I can just about imagine. Councilmember Green.
I'm muted from a distance.
We can hear you now.
It's good. All right, I'll let you handle that. I don't know why I have this silly thing on my screen. But so for me, one thing from the season, for our family, of course, was potato latkes. And that would be with sugar or sour cream and applesauce. But seems to me the meals I remember most, my grandmother was a Russian immigrant, and she would bake, all kinds of things, bread, strudels, pastries. My mother learned how to make a lemon meringue pie from my grandmother, and I would kill for that. I mean, just the best, the lightest, the tastiest, sugary, delicious, sweet. And then we would have at least one meal during the holidays where it'd be a standing rib roast. Now, my mother made a killer standing rib roast. And it was always medium rare. Maybe in the middle, it was actually rare. The ends were cooked, and the flavor and all the seasoning was on the end slices. So I and my brother, my sisters would kind of fight over who got the ends. I want it kind of thing. And we had a really nice place in Cleveland. We lived in Shaker. We had a nice sized dining room. The table would be set for that meal. We had a hi-fi set in the 50s. I mean, it was like the new thing. And there were, music on. Some of it would be klezmer music, but it would also be seasonal music too, Christmas music. My parents would have a lot of friends over and receive people during the holidays. And, but yeah, it was the latkes, the standing rib roast, my grandmother's bread, and my mother's lemon meringue pie, which kind of like reside in the memory here.
Right on. Well, let's see. For myself, I grew up, in Cajun country, so it's usually post hunting season. So there's usually guaranteed some very fresh game of some sort. I always seem to remember dry turkey. I don't know why. I've just been inundated in life with the access to the dry turkey, lots of dry turkey. Except one year, I had a friend of mine who fried turkeys. And if that wasn't the most succulent, delicious turkey I've ever had in my life, I think of that turkey every holiday, and it is the standard of which I hold all other turkeys to and toward, because it's, it was just amazing. And my stepdad was of the World War II generation, so we would go over to his brothers and sisters' house, and they weren't fucking around for the holidays. I mean, it was, you got there, the house just smelled of 6 different things going on, somehow on a four-head stove. But and it was constant, ants moving around at hurried paces, and then finally the call to the table, and suffering from the traditional having to sit at the little person's table because I was the youngest of 13, and then working my way up to the big table and still getting dry turkey. So I thought potentially it was the adult table would have the solid turkey, but I would only be sorely disappointed by that in the end. Lots of sweets, pies. Of course, we used to have 3 pecan trees in my yard. So, pecan pie was, very much associated with both Thanksgiving and Christmas as well. So it was usually a gathering, and usually more food than everyone could handle. And everybody left with an ample supply of Tupperware stuff to the gills to take with you. So it's just a whole plethora of food, but for some reason, and it's wonderful and amazing holiday for that. But in the end, it's just dry turkey that sticks out for me in the end. So it just is what it is. So we are all here. This is the Veterans Action Council. So since we are we've all been in the military. We've all spent military holidays in the most unique or ununique places around the world. So take us on a little journey of your experiences in the holiday season and being in the military. So, Councilmember Crowitz, we know it happened in Guam.
What happens in Guam stays in Guam, I guess. Yeah. Boy. Yeah. Sorry, that pen really gets me. I feel like what was probably the most unique would be, I don't know. It's a toss-up in my head. Been some interesting places. Mississippi. Got to spend some time in Biloxi, Mississippi, the Gulf Coast. The whole Gulf Coast has been kind of rearranged now, so it looks a lot different than when I was down there.
Every few decades, it does that. It's a cultural shift.
Right? But I think I was on an exercise right around Christmas, and was down in Darwin, Northern Territory, Darwin, Australia, and that was an experience. I mean, I was only down there for just I don't know, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks exercise, and yet to this day, all these years later, I really remember it so vividly in so many different ways. But just the kind of the image of folks hanging out, having a beer, really great beer, and playing backgammon in a club, in a bar, and just hanging out in the afternoon playing backgammon. Didn't see that a lot back home. Just the feel of the place, where you were so close to something so wild. These trucks, I guess you call them trucks, kind of Jeeps, would come out of the outback, and they would have so much cage on it, you could hardly even see the Jeep underneath, but they had to have all this rigging on it in case they, were hit by some rather large animals jumping across the road out there in the outback. Just amazing, and just rigged up with, spare tires and spare gas and spare water and everything else. I mean, you're literally on your own out there, and that's just, I don't know, something about that place, how close it was to something so hostile, but so beautiful in so many different ways. It really stuck with me.
Councilmember Byrne. Al, you spent some unique holidays.
Yeah, I was afraid you'd get to me. Well, I don't know, again, the military time, I had some Christmases that I don't know, Michael used the word unique. I guess they were all pretty unique. I can remember being on a destroyer and getting a phone call back in the mid 60s that I had a baby girl. That was a hell of a good Christmas Eve. I couldn't see her. I wasn't there, but I knew I had a daughter. It wasn't long after that I spent Christmas Eve or Christmas Day in Vietnam, and that was not a fun day. I think the bad guys understood that we might want to relax that day, so they made sure where I was that we didn't. I've had some good times with the Seabees. I was with the Seabees for a little over 7 years. We spent one absolutely boring Christmas and Christmas Eve in Diego Garcia. 1,400 guys looking at each other. That was interesting. I also with the Seabees, we deployed out of California, and Christmas Eve we arrived in Puerto Rico, and we weren't feeling too good, but the battalion we relieved felt pretty good because they went home on Christmas Eve. And there've been others where I had show duty, and it was pretty much like a normal Christmas. But I've always remembered those Christmases with the troops, doing what other people didn't ever understood what we did and didn't care really. But on those nights and days, they were pretty important to all of us, and I think it was important to all of us that we shared them together. And they were all good. They were all different, but they were all good. It was a good time.
Right on, Al. Kendra, how about you? You said you definitely spent some holidays abroad?
So I'm going to start out with Thanksgiving and basic training. First of all, I was actually graduating the next day. My mom and dad are pretty conservative. This was in 2000, but this is Thanksgiving in San Antonio. I didn't know what the hell, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what would be open. And I wanted to go to Dick's Last Resort, which if anybody's been there, it's pretty funny. It's quite an experience. So to see my mom realize what was actually going on was quite funny. Just look up Dick's Last Resort and imagine a conservative mother not knowing what she's getting into, and you'll kind of experience what was going on in her head and the facial expressions. The actual first Christmas I came home, I surprised my parents because I was in tech school by then in Wichita Falls at Shepherd. So I called my brother and I'm like, hey bro, I'm like, pick me up from the airport. I'm gonna, surprise mom and dad. So I did that. And it was nice. I don't really remember a lot of, details between certain things. I know my first Christmas being married, we were PCSing from Japan to Southern Georgia. And it dawned on us that we're in a hotel room because we just got there 3 days before Christmas, and maybe we should get a Christmas tree. So we just got one of those little white Christmas trees with the fiber optics. And we're like, well, this is Christmas Day, I guess, So a little bit further down the road, I was in Iraq, and this was Christmas Eve. I drove fuel trucks, filled up aircraft. I was, on the flight line fueling. It was end of shift. You're like, God, you're like, damn it, I have to, you're end of shift, you're Christmas Eve, whatever. And I was refueling one of our med vacs, and of course, me being a female, being on the flight line, being in Iraq, I talk to anybody anyways. So we're talking, the dudes come out, with their Christmas hat on and everything. And we're talking, and they're like, hey, here, we got a little present for you. Here you go. And I'm like, okay. They're like, just put it in your pocket. Just leave it in your pocket. I'm like, all right, cool. And then, so like, I look and I'm like, all right, cool. Thank you. Da-da-da. And so we're going along, and he's like, you got like a bag or something? I'm like, well, I got my backpack. I keep all my, stuff. We get stuck on the flight line, stuff like that, And so he's like, give me your backpack. And I'm like, okay. So I give him my backpack and I get it back, and I'm like, looking there. I'm like, okay. So I'm just like, all right, we're getting ready, whatever. And the flight line's quiet. It was nighttime. When did I work? We worked 7 to 7. So it was about 7, and it was quiet and everything. And like, there's choppers flying around, which is normal, stuff like that. And all of a sudden, you were like, okay, why the hell is he not marshaling me out? Why is he like, let's get this going. It's shift change. Like, I want to get off of work. It's Christmas Eve, and I'm like, what's going on? And I see security forces running around, and I'm just like, okay. And then I hear a little knock on my door, and I like look down. I'm in a big field truck. I like look down, and I see security forces. I'm like, oh fuck, what's going on? There's this little female, and she's like, hi ma'am, blah blah blah. I just want to let you know, flight line's on lockdown right now, so I can't tell you how long we're gonna be there. We're gonna be here and da-da-da. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like shitting my bricks because I know what I got in my bag. I'm not gonna go there. And I have security forces knocking on my door. The flight line shut down. I'm like, oh fuck. Like, I'm like, do. It ended up being that Donald Rumsfeld decided to make a surprise visit in Iraq on Christmas Eve. So I'm like, but just that one little instance in itself, I was just, it was, I will never forget that, and that crew and everything. And then the next morning, it was Christmas. Of course, I was working. At that time, I was stationed in Southern Georgia. So, you have your warm Christmases, which growing up in Ohio, you're not used to warm Christmases. You're not used to not white Christmases. But the one thing I do remember from Christmas Day being in Iraq is I think I was filling my truck back up in the yard or something like that. And I'm like, it was cold as hell. And one of my favorite things to do is to just crunch on like the puddles, like crunch them and just like crunch all the ice on the puddles and stuff like that. So I just remember like looking down at my boots and just like, okay, it's Christmas. I'm sitting here and I'm just crunching ice in the middle of Iraq, like whatever. It is what it is. I spent time in UAE, another time in UAE for Christmas, and every Christmas is different. As we were talking about this the other day, I started thinking back. I'm like, I have had a lot of different Christmases in a lot of different areas. No wonder why us, military, us veterans, like we have our own family and we know this, but we don't really realize where we're at or what we're doing, who we're with, and what we're also missing, what we grew up with knowing as Christmas. And then here we are sitting in the chow hall eating, hopefully you have a good hot meal. I was Air Force, so I always had a hot meal, usually dessert too. So it really hits you when you start hearing about like all these different experiences and what we've been through and what we haven't been through throughout the years. So it's pretty cool. But I'll never forget that Christmas Eve and Christmas Day in Iraq. It was quite the experience. It's pretty fun.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's very insightful. We'll go over to Pearson. Hey, Pearson, I got a question for you. Since you were talking beaver. What did the beaver say to the Christmas tree?
What did the what say to the Christmas tree?
What did the beaver say to the Christmas tree?
I don't know. What did the beaver say?
Nice knowing you.
Nice knowing you. That's perfect. I love it.
So tell us
about
your holidays.
Well, I guess my first Christmas in the military or the Marine Corps was boot camp, which was kind of odd. I guess it was first Christmas away from home, and our kill hat. In the Marine Corps, we have our senior drill instructor, our drill hat, and our kill hat. And it's just that the drill hat pretty much is there to instruct and do a little bit of disciplinary actions, and the kill hat is simply there to destroy you. We were told to put a sock up on our rack before we went to bed or before lights, and woke up the next morning to a tripod with a camera on it and our kill hat on another level. And it was a wild hour and a half just thrashing on Christmas morning. He definitely left an imprint in my head on that one. I think everyone else in the platoons. 3002. That dude. I've been meaning to look that dude up just to tell him how much he's influenced me in a scared shitless type of way. So that was my first Christmas in the military. Then, shoot, I guess I don't remember my second one. My third, well, I guess my second one was in Iraq with Bluff Daddy. That was a rough deployment. I mean, I guess both of them were rough, but what was going on there was way too much to deal with to even recognize a holiday. I think just the momentum that we had going on, and the operations and the things that weren't available to us. We were really undermanned, and not because we were losing guys specifically to combat casualties, just guys are dropping off from everything involving, what were they, Red Cross notifications or injuries that had to do with, things that weren't combat related. We'll just put it that way. Not necessarily not engaging with the enemy, but yeah, that sucked. It was a fun Christmas. At least I had Fluff Daddy with me and a couple other great individuals. So, I can't even remember my fourth Christmas, or if I had one in the military or in the Marine Corps. So I'll just leave it at that. The Lions of Baghdadi were around back in 2007. So it was Baba Christmas. So that's all I got.
Thank you for sharing. Councilmember Green. The long trek across the room to the microphone. Yes, it's your turn.
I'm unmuting. All right. So, much like Pearson, I don't know if that's on everybody's screen. I apologize. My first Christmas in the service and my first holidays was I was at Naval Training Station, San Diego, Point Loma. And they offered our company the opportunity to go home for the holidays. I don't know if you had 7 days or 10 days you could take off, or you could remain on the base. And I and a number of guys decided to stay on the base. We didn't do any real training, but we stood some watches, if you will. And then on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day, they gave us liberty. And I think it was till 10 p.m. at night. So we got off like late in the afternoon on the 24th, wound up going down to downtown San Diego, getting a real meal, being off the base. I don't think we were wearing civvies. I don't remember if we had that option. I don't think so yet. And then next day went out and we caught a group of my friends, new friends. We caught a meal. That was my first Christmas. The other ones that were kind of memorable in the service were one in Japan. And that was actually, so what was that? Sometime late in 1971 after coming back from the line in Vietnam. And that's kind of where I was kind of introduced to marijuana, was in Vietnam. And someone discovered, one of my shipmates, a club in Sasebo called the Zigzag Club. And the decor was very much zigzag papers, etc. And you could not only have a sake, or maybe even take yourself to a furrow, a hot bath, private bath, but you could sit around and smoke marijuana. Who knew? So that was actually a pretty high Christmas, and that was a lot of fun. It was nice to be back out of Vietnam and back in Japan. I spent a fair amount of time there. And then walking around Japan. And of course, not a predominantly Christian country by any means, but the Southern Island, that's where Christianity was introduced to Nagasaki, with the coming of the Dutch, if you will, Spanish and then the Dutch. And those were considered the Christian kingdoms of Japan, the daimyos, that were frequently in revolt. And religion was very much part of that. But I remember just how gorgeous Sasebo, Japan would be at Christmas time. Not only with what was traditionally lit up by all the neon that was over the bars and the areas we would typically be in, but windows with Christmas paraphernalia, the manger scenes, et cetera, et cetera. So that was very reminiscent of home, regardless of how I was brought up, because it's endemic, it's everywhere, and that was really beautiful. And then I remember Christmas in 1972, coming back from Vietnam. War was going to be over in about a week. We were off the line, and that had been really intense. We lost a shipmate or two, unfortunately, but we were on our way back, and we were off the coast of Hawaii. Maybe it was closer to Guam, might have been. And the captain slowed the ship down. The weather was warm. and we had a barbecue, and it was fabulous. Who knew that kind of food was aboard this ship? It was amazing. And it was a party, and people really enjoyed themselves. And of course, they were all thrilled that we were going back to the States. And that was my last Christmas in the service. I will say that service offered a lot of opportunities. I didn't really care to serve. I think some of you know that, but I did. I did almost 6 years, drafty. But while in the service, I became a Jewish lay chaplain. And we would conduct services, especially like at Hanukkah. We had a Hanukkah party on 3 of the boats I was on. And there was just enough of a crew to have an interest in that. We would exchange gifts. And it was it was a pleasant time. Mess techs didn't make us anything special, I don't recall. It was really nice to be able to congregate and celebrate. And, and you long for home. What can I say? Or you look forward to doing it once you get out. So those are the Christmases that come to mind, the holidays that come to mind for me in connection with the service.
Kendra.
Somebody said, Michael, is your friend there a veteran also?
Yes, Michael, my friend, is a veteran. This is Benjamin Graywall, lean in, corporal, give him a wave. He's a little taciturn this evening. He's had a long day and he's observing, and but a great guy.
Right on. Well, welcome and happy holidays to you. Well, for me, I only spent one holiday, and it was for it was actually, they gave us R&R. They in West, I was with the 201st West Virginia Army National Guard, and we got activated, and for some reason, my commander finagled a 72-hour leave for us to go home, say our goodbyes, and show up first thing on the 26th, and off we flew, and off to Saudi Arabia we went. And yeah, it was, needless to say, a very sobering 72 hours because, you know, yeah, it was very emotional, needless to say, for some reason. So I went around and said my goodbyes to all my friends, just in case. You know, I said, you know, I hope I hope to come back. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's each one of us goes through our final goodbyes, and so Christmas was a final jam with my band. I used to be in a hardcore punk band, so I was going through college at West Virginia University there, and I had an all ages club with a couple of other friends of mine, Amy and Fuzzy, and it was just a lot of punk acts and alternative music as they were traveling from New York, California, and vice versa. So I got to go in my club and have, you know, one last jam with my band, which was just a lot of fun, tearful, and, you know, just kind of a good thing. And then I ate acid and I tripped my balls off for the rest of the night. Yeah, staring into the fuzz of the screen. For some reason, we decided to watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and which is a lot of fun on acid, I'm just gonna say. It was very, very entertaining. And then Dead Poet Society, you know, because we always wanted to end on a happy note. I don't know how that happened. Regardless, just stayed up all night, smoking pot, tripping with my friends, you know, having a good time, and literally suited up, and they drove me to the mile ground where, you know, got in formation, said, you know, all my goodbyes, and, you know, still tripping, by the way. Whoever had the acid, I just want to say kudos. It was a solid, yeah, third eye squeegeeing, needless to say. So, yeah, and of course I said goodbye to my dad and my stepmom, and that was very tearful and emotional, you know, because again, you're potentially saying goodbye for the last time. You we didn't all know that we survived, or, you know, that was going to be the situation. So, you know, you prepare for the worst just in case. You don't want to leave them with bad memories, right? We want to leave them with at least a final goodbye. And yeah. I was I was wronged by a friend of mine who cheated on my girlfriend, and they ended up living together. And for some reason, that night before I left, I went over to their house, knocked on the door, and told them I forgave them, wished them all the best, and have a good life. And it was just one of those things I wanted to get off my chest. You know what I'm saying? So it was great to get that off and free myself from any of these kind of earthly binds that I felt that were keeping me down, just in case worst case scenario would have happened. So, which, you know, it didn't happen, didn't transpire for us. So, you know, it is what it is and was what it was. So, yeah, New Year's, however, though, I was in Saudi Arabia. So that was a total different shit changed quick. Went from very snowy in the mountains of West Virginia to very dry and arid and flat. So cultural shifts, to say the least. So regardless, so what do reindeer hang on their Christmas trees? Ornaments. Yes.
Jingle bells.
There was there was demand for bad jokes, so, you know, I got some groaners. My wife is chastising me exponentially in the background. Pearson.
All right, so I haven't said one of these jokes in a while, but I guess it's due. What's red and scratches on glass?
What?
Nobody. What? A baby in a microwave.
Oh, and a holiday spirit to you too, sir.
Yeah, that's a Marine joke for you. We don't actually do that.
Needless to say, it goes all over the place. Well, our last discussion will be around food, you know, such as, you know, what is your favorite Christmas food? What's your favorite food that you have to have, want to have, makes you satisfied on Christmas? So, Michael Crowitz.
I was chewing. Sorry. Yeah, man. You see a little quick Google search came up with a silly joke and a good quote. What's big and jolly says, oh, oh, oh. And of course, that's Santa Claus walking backwards. And then the greatest thing is not to believe in Santa Claus, it is to be Santa Claus. Be Santa Claus. So anyway, I like that. Hey, you know, thinking about food, what Michael was saying is, I guess, similar to my growing up. I grew up in a household, followed Jewish traditions, went through the Jewish, you know, holidays, Hanukkah and all that. But I don't know, my parents were probably typical of a lot of parents in the 60s in, you know, suburban America, where we had all the trappings of Christmas as well. And Christmas was a very big thing at school and everything. So I kind of had the best of both worlds. And my mom had, she had two things that she did that were just really, really, actually three that were really great. And two of them I remember associated with Hanukkah, and the other one associated with Christmas. And the two associated with Hanukkah, well, actually, I take it back. One associated with Hanukkah and two associated with Christmas. And the one associated with Hanukkah was these pancakes, these potato latke pancakes. I mean, it's just a silly thing that seems like it would be so easy to make. They're not so easy to make. And just potato latkes, right, Kim? Yeah, anyway, they're called potato latkes, and just look them up. They're unbelievably good. And then on Christmas, my mom would have this thing, and I don't know what, what the history of it is, but when I looked it up and learned about it later in college, it essentially was what is called chitlins. And she called them grimaces or crimaces or something like that, cribbins. And these were like these salty, crunchy, almost like pork rinds, but not. Really good. I mean, really, really good. Especially if you got them like right out of the kitchen, they were just incredible. And then there were these holiday cookies that she had that were these like really light butter cookies that they had. I guess every mom in the 60s had this set of cookie presses that you put the dough in and you'd make these little star cookies, right? Oh, my mom's were so good, and they were so light, and they tasted so incredibly good. And again, when you got them out of the oven, it was like just something that you couldn't describe with words. It was part of the holiday experience for sure. Really, really beautiful.
Right on. Sounds delicious. My wife raves about them all the time. She was hearing you talking about it and started to rave about them as well. So, there's a thing to this apparently. So, Al, how about you? What's your go-to holiday food?
Bah, humbug. I don't know. I tried to say before, the holidays to me were sort of incidental to wherever I was and what I had to do. And for me, it was always, I was working, I was standing duty, I was someplace I didn't want to be. And I was just happy that the guys that prepared the food did the best they could, and they always did, and it was always good, and I was grateful. The best, I don't know, the best is what you get right then when you get it, and it tastes good and it's good for you, and you appreciate the guys that made it. I think that's what it was for me. I like salt. If I had to pick my favorite food, it'd be potato chips. So, but I'm also been known in my past to be a gourmet chef. So I'm not negating the stuff that Michael's talking about. And I certainly refer back to my grandparents, who were superb bakers for cookies and cakes and pies and all of that sort of stuff. I spent most of my life in the military and after my military in some sort of service. And a lot of that service was providing food at different levels. And what I enjoyed most, I guess, about the holidays, whatever the holiday you might pick, is that I watched my customers, if you will, the consumers of the work that we produce, be satisfied, satiated, and happy. And that was sort of the reward. So I guess the best food that I got was the smiles and the full bellies that we provided. That was probably the best thing.
Yeah, there's nothing like sharing this season with people, needless to say, and being a contributor to that. Let's see if I can get in another corny joke here. Who delivers presents to cats? Santa Paws. That's right. And our resident happy cat owner over there, Kendra. How about you? What's your go-to holiday food?
Well, I mentioned a lot of stuff earlier with the Italian stuff and a lot of cookies. But now that I think about it, we also used to make a lot of candies, homemade caramels and fudge. And honestly, one of my favorites is homemade toffee. And we make the coffee. I do love coffee, but we make the toffee on the stovetop, and you're just stirring it and stirring it and stirring it. And it is hot as hell. And it's just, you have to watch that thermometer and wait for it to get up to that specific temperature for that right crack that you want your toffee to crack at. And so it doesn't, break your teeth, hopefully. And then you pour it on the pan and you spread chocolate over it and nuts if you want nuts. And I always, you know, took the nuts off as a kid. But I would say toffees and candies, cookies. As I said, we make a ton of different types of cookies. And I know about the pressed cookies that you're talking about. They're like, you know, they got like red and yellow and green in them and stuff like that too. Those are really good too. So mainly, who doesn't love cookies?
Exactly. Right. So, Council Member Pearson, what's your holiday food, sir?
Well, I guess my holiday food is the go-to is always turkey. I can never get enough of hot turkey sandwiches after the holidays. So yeah, I think there's no competition with me and leftover turkey. So quite literally, I was always really, really excited about the leftover turkey rather than the turkey that I was eating at the dinner table on Christmas. Yeah.
Well, you know what happened to the turkey, right?
No, please. I think I have one for you also. It doesn't involve babies.
It got gobbled.
It got gobbled. Well, all right. So I got one for you. As earmuffs to anybody under the age of 25. Why does Santa always come down the chimney? Because he knows better than to go in the back door.
Marines, ladies and gentlemen, Marines. Yes, the few, the proud. Councilmember Green, what's your go-to?
Well, my go-to I can't get. My favorite treat, notwithstanding my mother's lemon meringue pie, was a thing that was baked in Cleveland, Ohio. That's the only place I ever recall seeing, called a coconut square. And you could get that at the Jewish bakery. And a coconut square was, I don't know if I can even put together, like a sponge cake with not a chocolate icing, but like almost like a chocolate cake covering over it, sprinkled and flavored through with coconut. It would melt in your mouth. And I thought that was like maybe the single most delicious thing on the planet. And I spend time occasionally, if I'm in a strange town, looking at bakeries just to see if I can't ever stumble across the coconut square again. And that's how I knew them by name. I have no idea if it carries another name. And that is something, I would go to that any place I could find it, especially on a holiday, because that's when it would show up at our house. Or if I went shopping for my mother and she stopped in the bakery, I'd be pushing up against the cookie counter, right? Coconut square, you know, something like that instead. Cookie. Michael Krawitz. So gribbins, if I heard you correctly, if that's what you're saying in connection with your potato latkes, gribbins is actually can be like pork rind, only it's the skin from the chicken. The chicken that was rendered down and finally fried to make schmaltz, chicken fat for cooking, is a cooking oil. Because kosher, you wouldn't use lard. And sometimes there'd be a little onion in that that'd be very crisp. And because I was the pitiful, undernourished child because I refused to eat most of what they put on my plate, I was frequently rewarded by my grandmother with more than the lion's share of that. But that is something more so than the end cuts of the standing rib roast that my brother and my sisters would buy for as well. We want the grieben. And that went on till I was 14 or 15 or 16 years old, you know, and maybe till I actually left my mother's house, by which time my older brother and sister were gone. And my younger sister was no longer into that. But that's what grieben is, griebenas. So it's like pork rind, maybe, could be, but it's actually chicken skin.
There you go.
Awesome.
Let's see. Why did the turkey cross the road? It was the chicken's day off. Okay. Yeah. You wanted bad, corny jokes.
That was the best one yet.
That
I gotta hand it.
That was
that
good.
made me snicker. That made me
That was
sick.
good.
It
I
was
thought
so
that
bad
would
it was
be a
good, or
cat.
it's so good it's bad.
Both.
What's Santa's favorite singer? Elvis Presley.
Elvis.
Yeah. Okay. All right. For me, ham, glazed ham. Yeah, candied ham. I know it's not kosher at all, but it's absolutely, yeah. It's become for me depending on the holiday as opposed to the standard dry turkey. We did our Thanksgiving late, and we had a ham this year, so I've got my holiday satiation all dealt with for this year, and I look forward to pies. Nothing like holiday pies, so we'll see what the holiday brings. It's random. You don't know what's the pies are going to be there. It's usually plural. There's usually no singular. So what pies will it be? We shall see. Probably some banana cream and chocolate cream. Yeah, I have a weakness for those. And I know a great bakery who makes them. So I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. Council members Michael Crowitz, Al Byrne, Aaron Pluff, Kendra Billersowie, Pearson Kennedy Crosby, Michael Green, George Armstrong, and myself. It's been an absolutely amazing and wonderful year. Needless to say, with having Noam Chomsky, having a conversation with him, and various other topics that we've had throughout this year. So I want to thank you all for joining us for our roundtable, and we will be back in the new year. So this is our last one for now. So we'll be back, as I said, in 2022. So thank you, everybody. Wish you all happy holidays, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Best to everyone.
Take care.